Welcome to Shareholders of a Better World, brought to you by TBLI Group. A TBLI Group has an established reputation as an organization dedicated to building the ecosystem of global sustainability and impact investing. We're doing this through educating, advising, and facilitating transactions in global sustainability and impact business, as well as capital solutions for private companies, family offices, and fund groups. For nearly 25 years, TBLI Group has created a vertically integrated ecosystem of education to action through TBLI conferences and TBLI consulting. More about our company can be found at tbligroup.com. This webinar is brought to you by TBLI Foundation, which hosts educational learning experiences dedicated to a better planet. Through the foundation, we build sustainable communities by sharing the people and the experiences making a difference to so many of our lives around the world. Our weekly podcasts bring impact thought leaders that are doing and not only chatting. Now let me introduce my guest today.
Good afternoon from our studio in Amsterdam. Before I introduce Eddy Travia, for those of you who've never joined before, and some housekeeping instructions. If you have a comment or question, type it in the lower right or left-hand corner, depending on your screen, where you see comments or questions. If you want to clap or you find something funny or brilliant, there are 3 emojis that you can use. And if you need to send a private message to anyone in the chat area, just move your cursor or your mouse over their name, and a window will pop up, and then you can send them a private message. Otherwise, anything you type in the comments area goes, everyone sees that. So I'm really thrilled today because we have a true expert on Web 3.0, Eddy Travia, who is going to kind of take us through not just how can you die rich as quickly as possible investing in crypto, but what it can offer. So Eddy, turn your camera on and your microphone. I'll go on mute. Thank you so much for taking the time today. You're one of the early pioneers in this space. So for those who are not familiar with you and who you are, what you do, if you can tell a little bit of your background and also what is Web 3.0?
Yes, sure, with pleasure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Eddy Travia. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Coinsilium. I've been in the blockchain space since 2013. We created one of the first incubators in this space. Before that, I was working in private equity in China and Hong Kong. And we started off the incubator out of Hong Kong. We organized the first crypto conference in Asia back in November 2013 in Singapore, where I'm based now. And since then, we listed a company in December 2015. We are now, company's shares are now traded in both London and New York. And we have invested in maybe about 30 blockchain companies. I've been and I remain an advisor of many companies in the space, and I help a lot of entrepreneurs to build their blockchain startups and companies. So for what is Web3, I mean, a bit of time ahead of us. So I will delve into this in the presentation for sure. Shall I share my screen?
Sure. Yes? Yeah. There's it's the second circle from the far left next to the red door.
Okay. So let's choose this one. Let's see. I choose PDF. Okay. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So in the discussion I had with your organization, we looked at the topics, and I want to say that blockchain, although it's a young technology in a way because has been around only since 2009, it has grown into something quite extraordinarily large with many facets, and Web3 is one of those, I would say. Or in some way, Web3 encompasses blockchain technology. But in order for you to understand better where Web3 comes from, I'm also talking about the origins of blockchain and, in a way, the origins of money quickly as well. So let me tell you a bit more. So this is not financial advice. Of course, I'm going to talk about tons of different products, cryptocurrencies, etc. I'm not selling anything. No worries. I'm just doing this for pure educational purposes. So these are the two main companies I'm involved with now. Coinsilium, as I was saying, headquartered now is in Gibraltar, of course in Singapore. This is the old logo from Bitcoin Singapore 2013, and I've done a couple of TEDx talks, one at Google Campus for Instituto de Empresa Madrid in 2016, and one at INSEAD in 2018. So a brief background on origins of money. So origins of money, and as well origins of ledger. The reason why we talk about it, because blockchain is basically a ledger, and coincidentally, the first form of human writing, for those who have maybe have read about it in Harari's book, is actually a ledger. It's a tablet, a Sumerian tablet, 3,000 years about before current era, and the importance of ledger, as we know throughout history, for banks like the Medici banks, for all kinds of accounts. And this is an example. The rhinestone here is an example of a limestone that is often used to describe a way to assign value to something that doesn't maybe naturally have value, but people agree on a certain value for it, which is the case of these limestones in Micronesia. And this represents basically the wealth of some families, a village, and so forth. But the interesting part, which is a bit like blockchain, is that the limestone wheel actually doesn't move. It's very seldom moved. We assign property of that wheel to someone else, to another family, to another person. And it's very similar how blockchain works, as we will see. Another quick anecdote about money is that a lot of people talk about crypto as a virtual currency, but actually, if you look at anthropology, virtual currency has been around for a long time, because a couple of thousand years before current era as well, temples were holding gold or silver and were issuing some type of coins or some type of other artifacts that were representing the gold or silver in the vaults of a temple, for example. So again, the notion of social construct and money has always been, linked together in terms of assessing or giving a value to something that may or may not have a value in the first place. This is a recurrent theme in the world of cryptocurrencies. Now, if we come back to our modern times, blockchain, Bitcoin was first issued in January 2009, at the same time as this headline, or this headline, let's say, was present in the first mining of Bitcoin. So there is a message there. Message being that Bitcoin was created to kind of protect ourselves from the craziness of the macroeconomic world and central banks and so forth. And then it has rather quickly become a topic for academia, a topic for first, intellectuals, cryptographic experts, cypherpunks, as we call them, and, for example, Harvard Business Review, which I believe in 2017 said that blockchain is a foundational technology. And that's something that was shared as well by the World Economic Forum. I was in Davos, I believe, in 2016 or 17 as well, and blockchain was already prominent at the World Economic Forum at that time. So we saw that actually quite quickly that technology has become accepted by many. So blockchain provides very interesting benefits to us, to the society in general. It was called by the economists the trust machine. That was in 2015. And it provides data integrity without any trusted third party. That's a core principle of blockchain. It provides something that we call digital scarcity, because in a world where anyone can take a photo and send it to 100 people, or of course anyone can share to millions of people through the internet, in the case of blockchain, you can actually have digital scarcity. One digital asset is solely in your wallet. It's not in anybody else's wallet. It solved the famous double spending issue of anything digital. So in the early days of crypto, we had a parallel between email, internet, I would say. So what email was to the internet is what Bitcoin is to blockchain. So it's the first application, a rather simple application. Bitcoin has many limitations which are there on purpose, because the core principle is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, but security is a primary importance. And blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, has never been hacked. And since that first day of mining back in January 2009, first of all, you can find all the transactions. You can look them up in a Bitcoin Explorer, but no one has ever hacked the blockchain itself. So you have heard about hacks of many other things, wallets and exchanges and so forth, but no one has ever hacked the Bitcoin blockchain. And I will talk a bit later about the power of the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the largest computational power in the world today. Bitcoin blockchain is the largest computational power. And then later on, I would say around 2015, 16, with the first smart contracts, we have programmability that came into blockchain. And then we have layers upon layers of business logic, or what we call oracles, digital tokens, to go to today what is Web3. So that's why I'm doing this kind of back to the sources slides, so that we get a good foundation about where this comes from. So you have seen many definitions of blockchain. I think the key words are here, irrevocable transactional records. Irrevocable because anyone trying to change anything in the past basically breaks the chain, breaks the whole blockchain. So no one can go back and change anything. Each record has a timestamp, so that of course has its own usage for many applications. And again, the definition of a private ones, we will see quickly what this is, means that it's accessible to anyone, and what we call pseudonymous. I'll come back on that. So these are just the blockchain basics. So a system of computers connected via internet. Blockchain basically gathers different technologies which have been around for a few decades. I mean, cryptography has been around, of course. I mean, we use a lot of cryptography in our email. We use it when we go online on a banking website. It's not that part is not new. We use hash functions in before Bitcoin, before cryptocurrencies. We have used distributed computing before blockchain as well. Here we explain that data is replicated across the systems over a peer-to-peer network. This existed before as well. So it's the combination of all these elements that actually makes up blockchain itself. As I was saying, peer-to-peer transactions, no central intermediary. All the transactions are recorded, timestamped, and it can be written and read by certain participants, but entries are permanent, transparent, and searchable. So the reason why it says here certain participants is because the writing part, which is the mining part, is of course called. It is open to everyone, but today requires such a computational power that is actually limited to who can actually validate transactions. Now, basic and digital signatures. So this is something we are familiar with, usually in the context of email, because if you know anything about sending encrypted email, it works the same way. You have to sign the message. There is a verification algorithm. The receiver knows it's from you. So that's very similar to a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I put this word is important here. It's pseudonymous. Pseudonymous blockchain transactions are not anonymous. It's always a degree of knowledge, public knowledge, which is your public address. And in the case of many hacks and scams and so forth, there are companies, quite actually billion-dollar worth companies, that are helping law enforcement agencies, helping plaintiffs and so forth to recover funds. That's because it's pseudonymous, it's not anonymous. There is a degree of information that is provided every time there is a transaction. Then we have, so again, basics about blockchain. Hashing. Hashing basically gives you a fixed output for any input, a fixed string of characters as an output, and this output will be different, but always the same if the input is the same. So, for example, if you put here Binance written the same way, you would get the same output. But if you put Binance with a capital letter, for example, output is completely different. So this is hashing. So process of generating a fixed size output from an input of variable size. So you could have a book, and all the data in the book could still be represented by this small string of characters here. So in the blockchain, we use a lot what is called SHA 256, which means that actually you can have 2 to the power of 256 different hashes or combinations. And there is no risk. The risk of having the same, going through the hash function and receiving the same output for different input is extremely, extremely low, or almost impossible, because the number of possibilities here are larger than the grains of sand on Earth, in terms of range and scope, and almost as high as the number of atoms in the known universe. So that's the kind of mathematical, power here behind SHA 256. So through this hashing, is the probability of having twice the same result is nearly impossible, and that's why this is used today. This is done by the NSA, and it is used today, in many, many systems, and in most cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are all using SHA 256. Another basics of blockchain is crypto mining. You may have heard about this. Miners are usually like these huge server farms. They use a lot of electricity. Thankfully, a lot of this electricity energy comes from renewable sources. But the hash rate is incredible, meaning that every second, these mining rigs are processing 1 quintillion hash computations. So that's 10 and 18 zeros. So that's quintillion, 1,000 quadrillion, 1,000 trillion, and so forth. So you can imagine the size, and this means that it's actually very difficult to mine Bitcoin, and it's very difficult means that it's extremely difficult to hack it, to force it, to try to manipulate it in any way, because someone who would like, for example, to take all the Bitcoin network, we need to have enough power to actually be sure to validate all the transactions. And if somebody it's called the 51% attack, but to get there, this power is nearly impossible to achieve. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin is extremely secure. Again, I was talking here about the Bitcoin blockchain. There are thousands of blockchains out there. There's one way to divide these blockchains in a very simple way. Some of them are called public blockchains, and some of them are private blockchains. If you remember the internet era, it's very similar to intranet internet. Public blockchain, very open, anyone can join. User can read, write, again, because through mining, but it's difficult, but it's possible, and participate to a public blockchain. Is what we call decentralized, and the network security is ensured by this consensus mechanism to validate blocks, which is through the mining. Now, for private blockchain, actually, you don't need all that computational power. You can do something much similar to a regular database. But it can still be blockchain in the sense that you kind of you emulate the principles of blockchain, such as a chain of records of transactions. You could have a node, for example, to validate certain blocks. You could decide who can do what. So you can decide who can read, who can write, who can participate. For example, banks like private blockchains because they don't want anyone to come and see what's going on, even if it's pseudonymous. They don't want anyone to have a look on these records, right? So banks, insurance companies, corporate participants may prefer private blockchains, or as we will see, possibly banks for central bank digital currencies. This is just a data visualization wall from Cryptocurrency Lab that I went to visit. It's the largest data screen in Europe. It's very impressive, and they were doing experiences or experiments using. So it shows basically where cryptocurrency was being the nodes for the cryptocurrency transactions, and the fact that there are certain nodes which are much more used than others. They also use this somehow for law enforcement. I'm not sure exactly, but I think technically it was quite an interesting experience. This is already old. This we're talking about 6-7 years ago. They were working on this. So if we look at cryptocurrency adoption, we see that it's very close to the same kind of acceleration as the number of internet users, the growth in internet users. And here we compare to the number of blockchain wallet users. And it's a very fast growth. Of course, you have to understand that, it's lower, for example, AI, as everybody's seen, ChatGPT was crazy fast in terms of adoption. But the difference is it's not enough to just wallet. When we talk to the public, and we have been doing that since 2013, I always recommend to people not to just get a wallet. I mean, they can get a wallet, but they need to know about it first, because there are not only scams, there are also many ways to make mistakes, because cryptocurrency is something you deal with yourself. It's kind of your own bank in a way. So there is no one that you can call if there is a problem. If you lose your crypto, usually no recourse, unless there is by luck, some technical recourse sometimes, depending who you're dealing with. But normally there is no recourse if you make a mistake. And therefore, cryptocurrency adoption needs longer because of that. There is a learning curve, basically. So if we look at digital tokens, this is kind of the next step. So the first step was Bitcoin. Then Ethereum came along, 2015. Then 2016, we start having the first experiments with Ethereum. One that went really wrong was called the DAO, actually, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization at the time, in the summer 2016. But there were other things being done with smart contracts, other experiments, other projects, other different projects. And soon we came out different standards. ERC20 is basically just the name of a code of a standard for what we call digital tokens. And digital tokens are usually digital assets on an existing blockchain like Ethereum, and today there are many other blockchains you can have tokens on. So these tokens have been used a lot, for example, for fundraising through ICOs, initial coin offerings in 2017. There was a hype cycle there. Then 2017, 2018 was extremely busy. Billions of dollars were invested in different tokens. So that was the start of that cycle back then. There are many different types of tokens. What we normally call cryptocurrencies are the native cryptocurrencies of a blockchain. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, Ethereum is a cryptocurrency, but those that run on the blockchain of Ethereum, for example, we usually call them tokens. Then you have different type of tokens, utility tokens, which are supposed to be not to be security tokens, but as we know, the SEC has its own view about that. so utility tokens are supposed to be either redeemable for service product, give you access to a protocol, give you access to a service, or and so forth. Security tokens represent securities, bonds, stocks, assets, etc., commodities maybe. This is what we call security tokens. So they have a link to the what we call traditional finance, right? TradFi. And then there is a whole. We talk about this more in detail. So these tokens are usually what we call fungible, in the sense that one token is equivalent to another token, like a dollar, like a US dollar, right? So you can have a digital dollar, like a stable coin, and that would be equivalent to another digital dollar, or one Bitcoin is equivalent to any other Bitcoin. But that's not the case for non-fungible tokens, which are usually used for collectibles, especially in art, any type of collectible. And these are unique, so they are not supposed to be interchangeable with each other. I will talk about stablecoins a bit further in details as well, because that's becoming an important part of not only the crypto space, but also other investment. Even traditional finance is now looking at stable coins, and even governments are looking at stable coins, maybe replicating it through central bank digital currencies, or using them possibly. So corporations and tokens. So at that time, 2017, 18, people were investing, companies were issuing tokens, and let's say more established corporations had a lot of questions. So they wanted to understand, how do the token economics work, how the token model and the business model interact, because in the traditional world we have revenues, sales, etc. That's quite easy to translate that into an assessment of equity value. For example, you have so many shops, you have so much turnover, P ratio, etc. So this is what your company should be valued. Now with token, that's different. How many tokens can you issue? Do they have a value? Should we trust the market value? So there were a lot of questions at the time, and I was advising a lot of investors and educating more than advising, to be clear, but educating investors, educating people in general to ask, at least to ask the right question around token value. Governance, in the case that tokens are governance tokens. Regulations, because regulations has always been a problem in this space, and only certain jurisdictions are clarifying it. Like, as you may know, Europe is clarifying it through MiCA. The US is still messy. SEC is always, keeping kind of mudding the waters. And there are some other countries like Switzerland which have a more clearer approach. And as well, if an established corporation issues a token, what's the impact on the customer experience, and so forth. So this is already leaning more towards Web3, but we're not there yet. So tokenization. So as I was saying, a lot of tokens can represent assets, can represent any type of assets, could be real estate, or could be a real estate, a REIT, shares, for example. So we all know securitization. We're all familiar with digitalization, but now we have tokenization, which is kind of digitalization on a blockchain, related to a blockchain. And that's what EY was saying in 2020. EY, there's a Switzerland branch of EY, has been reporting a lot about tokens in the first few years of tokenization wave, let's say. This is again a kind of a EY slide or image. They were showing what kind of physical objects, financial products could be tokenized. So basically anything, to be clear, but it was a bit arranged in a kind of taxonomy. So collectibles, financial instruments, commodities, etc., even consumables. Now, what we believe and is that trillions of dollars of assets are going to be tokenized in the next 5 to 10 years, because again, that applies to all assets on our planet. So trillions of dollars is what is expected. Any large company that starts tokenizing their assets can contribute to that number very easily, or any country or any large organization. So security token, as I was saying, I'm not going to stay too long on that, but you get the idea. It's a security, but that has been tokenized, basically. So there are differences between the two. The main difference, to be clear, is that security tokens should naturally fall under securities laws. So that makes it completely different product. It's not easily traded on any exchange because it is a security token. It's not. But there are exchanges now, and I'll give an example or two, that are actually regulated. And one of them in Singapore that I know well as a regulated market operator license in the sandbox of the MAS, and they can trade security tokens. I would like to say in a similar way as any other exchange, but of course they are a bit more, there's more KYC, there's more, there are a few rules, like it's for accredited investors, basically. So you need to be whitelisted to be able to access it and to be able to trade. So the main differences are the purpose itself, expectations. In the case of utility token, there is no relationship between the business and the company evaluation and the token. Scam potential, unfortunately, quite high for utility tokens, less for security tokens, let's say. And regulation status, obviously, security tokens have to be in a regular environment. So what is a decentralized exchange? So that came up as well in the first wave, 2017-18. We saw first decentralized exchanges. They became much more prevalent in the last wave, which is 2020, 21, 22, which is a longer cycle, a longer positive cycle, let's say, where decentralized exchange means there is no KYC. Anyone can come in with their wallet, log in, trade, even liquidity, even list a token. There is no process. It's just very simple to do so. So it's really the peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies. So just coming back quickly on stablecoins, because that's becoming important, as I was saying. So you have what we call fiat-backed. So these are stablecoins like Tether, which is quite famous, or Circle stablecoin, USDC, which is both by Circle and Coinbase. These are supposed to be backed by $1, one digital dollar backed by $1, on a bank account somewhere. Money right now when interest rates are high. Great business at the moment. And we're talking about billions of dollars in stable coins. Commodity backed, that would be backed by commodities, as the name says. There is stable coins as well. Of course, a bit trickier, but they are. MakerDAO is one of those. And then you have non-collateralized algorithmic stable coins, but now with the spectacular death of the Terra stablecoin, which was an algorithmic one, there are not so many projects out there doing that. So though there are many challenges to stablecoins, they are centralized in nature. There are trust issues because do they really hold this cash? Do they really hold? Sometimes they hold commercial paper. Is it safe? Of course, regulations again. And unstable, depending on the type of pressure on the markets, because the price of the stablecoin is on many exchanges, and there could be pressure if there's low liquidity and so forth. And then there is a process called depegging, which can become dangerous, of course. If it's not redeemable for $1 anymore, then it's a problem for everyone, especially the ones who hold that. Different real-world application. Of course, cross-border payment is a very common one, and actually it was the most success has been to switch transfer value between exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges. A lot of these stable coins are being used for that because it's much quicker than a bank account, and therefore people who trade, do sophisticated trading, they want access to their funds quickly, and therefore they use stable coins. So just quickly, only a slide on regulators, different approaches to different types of virtual currencies. The SEC is famously involved in this, and the SEC, of course, like all regulators, takes some time. So there is a delay between the real hype. A lot of money, billions of dollars are invested, billions of dollars are lost sometimes, and then the SEC will come and try to set some rules. The problem is with the SEC clearly is that they don't have a very clear rule book about crypto, and that's what everybody's waiting for, including very large companies like BlackRock, which recently announced they want to do a Bitcoin ETF. So they definitely need these rule books. One slide as well on central bank digital currencies, because that's becoming a hot topic, and we're getting very close to banks issuing that. To be clear, they are normally not on blockchain. They are normally much closer to a centralized database issued currency, digital currency, for obvious reasons. Central bank doesn't want to. They don't want to lose control of the currency. There have been experiments in China, for example, in a few cities in China, and that's going on. And most crypto people are not in favor of central bank digital currencies for the control issue that I was mentioning. But interestingly, central banks actually could find that this is a good competitive advantage when it comes to dealing directly with certain organizations and even retail consumers. They become almost a competitor to retail banks in a way. So it's quite interesting and could help them as well with certain monetary policies, but this is a whole different subject. So let's come back to traditional finance, and let's start to look at DeFi, which is decentralized finance. So DeFi is building on everything I've told you until now. So stablecoins are extremely present in DeFi platforms. You need tokens, all kinds of tokens, but even security tokens are in DeFi, but depending on the regulation of the platform. So they build on all that, and they basically enable traders to actually create quite sophisticated trading techniques or trading models, programmatic ones, and so forth. Or in a simple form, basically allows traders to lend their crypto or to borrow crypto at certain rates that can vary quickly, and certain loan to value ratio and so forth. But it's a major now provision of liquidity for the whole space, for the whole trading space. And it has become that way quite recently. So the first DeFi platforms started in 2020. I wrote an article which I will mention quickly in July 2020, and in July 2020, I think the total value locked was like 4 billion, and it reached 60 plus billion about a year later. So it was really a fast growth. So if you just compare, you have on DeFi, instead of fiat, what we call fiat, like dollar, you have cryptocurrencies, tokens. You don't have prospectus, filings, registration, etc. So this is just to give you an idea of the new element in DeFi. No wire transfers, everything on crypto. No money market, treasury bills. There are fixed income returns today, but they are staking rewards or other types of fixed income that I call coded income. No need for voting rights. This is done through governance tokens. So this is kind of traditional finance 2.0 in a way, you can call this way as well. So that was my article. If you want, you can have a look. But I was mainly saying that DeFi space, the problem in the DeFi space is that it's very circular. It applies to anyone to join DeFi in the sense you need to know finance quite well, crypto quite well, and you need to be able to make sure that you know how to use your plugin wallet, the browser-based wallet of your crypto, because that's what most DeFi platforms use quite well and safely. So it became very circular. Like it's basically for DeFi traders to lend and borrow from other DeFi traders and to trade. it's not, there is no relation with the real world. So I was working on or at least intellectually, conceptually, I was debating around the need for a bridge between the crypto economy and the real economy, as DeFi has so many benefits, such as liquidity, flexibility, and so forth. So it could be interesting to two of those. So these are the main risks in DeFi. The first one is called the smart contract risk, which was lethal to the to the DAO in the summer 2016. There was a vulnerability on the smart contract, and they lost at the time $90 million, which resulted in actually Ethereum doing a hard fork and to prevent that scam to benefit to the scammer. That was a big thing at the time. But since then, unfortunately, many vulnerabilities in smart contracts has been exploited, and and people have lost money. But that's a major risk. One way to mitigate is to use smart contract auditors, even to use smart contract insurance. There are insurance companies doing that. Platform risk, that's blockchain protocol like Ethereum. It could be in trouble, and of course it's going to affect the smart contracts. Exchange and liquidation risk, this is very similar to what you know in traditional finance. There could be liquidations because the price goes down too much, and in this kind of DeFi is automated. There is no recourse. So if there is a liquidation, there's nothing you can do about it because it's all just programs. There is also something called oracles, which are feeds of prices, external prices that come into the mix. Need to, for example, decide on certain contracts. This could come from other blockchains or the outside world. Blockchains don't communicate at all between each other, so you need these oracles to basically share data between blockchains or share certain data like prices, etc., between blockchains. So oracle risk, Chainlink is one of the major ones there, quite well known, but there are risks as well that it goes down. And black swan risk as for any market. So for example, March 2020, prices fell 40% in a single day. So, decentralized finance, let's go back to what is the concept of decentralization in the blockchain context. So we saw that distributed has been around for a while, and decentralized meaning this is a centralization of the power away from a central authority. And in decentralized blockchains, anyone can participate. So that's quite an important concept, and it's at the heart of the Web3 movement as well. So what are the benefits of decentralization is what I call function-centric, meaning that the smart contracts or these platforms are actually only worried about the function. They're not worried about the human element. They're not worried about anything else, gender, diversity, etc. No, it's just function focused. And it's also usually autonomous execution through these smart contracts, which are deterministic in general. There is no single point of failure. You control your own data. This is very important in Web3, as we will see. There is transparency in the rules and processes, and there is what I mentioned before, records immutability. So you cannot go back and change anything. This is a post by A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the major investors in this space. They were talking about what we call progressive decentralization. So for different type of objectives, for example, product and tech, at different stages, for sustainability, for token distribution, regulatory stages, etc. This is a very interesting article about how to start implementing decentralization in existing companies or in new companies. I want to go a little bit quicker here, so I'm not going to text, but have a look at this article if you wish. It's very good one, and it gives a good explanation of why decentralization is going to be very important in the future. It's important today, but growingly important in the future. That's a similar take on the difference between companies and protocols, or what we call decentralized autonomous organizations. And a similar take as in my DeFi example is what exists today, what are we used to, board of directors, so forth, identity, and what is going to be the equivalent, what is the equivalent in the world of protocols and decentralized organization. This is from an article from Not Boring State. This article is on a decentralized kind of medium platform called mirror.xyz. So what is the definition of Web3? So you have kind of two different main definitions, and are trying to merge. They're starting to merge. Already, Web3 was supposed to be like an enhanced version of Web2, but nothing to do originally with blockchain. It was more about a more open internet and kind of an improvement of the internet we know. And today, as it has been kind of mixed with blockchain, it has combined with blockchain, because blockchain has been one of the main proponents of Web3, and because Web3 actually makes a lot of sense in the blockchain context. So Gavin Wood, who's a co-founder of Ethereum and also the co-founder of Polkadot, which is a new blockchain, has explained that for him Web3 is very important because it's censorship resistant, attack resistant, because of the lack of single point of failure. Right? So you will see again the same kind of graph where Web3 is actually decentralized. But you can also find still definitions of Web3 which have nothing to do with blockchain there. It's usually called Web 3.0. So if we move from Web 2 to Web 3, where are we going? So we're moving away from platform-centric to function-centric. So the platform is not that important. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Twitter, etc. The function is important. We're moving away from subscription model to token-based economy. We're moving away from traditional governance with board of director, etc., to the DAO governance, which is decentralized governance. Of course, there are challenges. It doesn't happen in a day. There's a definition here of DAO. It's a group organized around a mission that coordinates through a shared set of rules enforced on a blockchain. Again, there's always a difference between the concept and the reality, but this is conceptually what it means to enter the Web3 paradigm. So what are the benefits? Well, a lot of Web2 is based around entertainment, and Web3 is supposed to focus on empowerment. There is also composability or interoperability is very important in Web3. Everything is open source. Everything should connect and communicate with each other. You have new what we call crypto primitives, which are DIDs, decentralized identities, and verifiable credentials. That's very important in Web3. You have independent ownership of your data and your expression. No need to trust a centralized authority again. Transparency, but still exciting and fun applications. Once we get there, once there are enough people. So this is still early today. Most of these applications don't have near at all what a Facebook has in terms of billions of subscribers. We're talking about thousands here, tens of thousands, right? So all this is starting, but the experience is different and the opportunities are very different as well. NFTs has been a big part of the story of the last hype cycle. As I was saying, 2021, 2022, NFTs are collectibles that have been traded. Different brands have embraced it. Billions of dollars have been traded in that space. There have been record-breaking valuations. This rock here purchased for $2 million, almost $3 million. Sounds crazy, but at the time, everybody was trying to get the latest one. Bored Apes, you may have heard. OpenSea is one of the major platforms, also reached like multi-billion dollar valuation. These are the CryptoPunks. So yeah, I mean, it was a bit crazy. There was definitely a bubble side to it, but it was exciting and a lot of creativity, and a lot of artists actually made money in this way, in a direct manner, no intermediaries. That was quite exciting for everyone. Then there has been as well the emergence of the metaverse. In the blockchain space, the main ones are Decentraland and Sandbox, quite famous. Both got a lot of investments. Sandbox more from traditional investors, Decentraland more from crypto side. So you probably heard about it. No need to spend too much time on it, but the two are connected again, because in metaverse, blockchain ones, everything can be NFTs, everything can be non-fungible tokens. That means people can buy, trade land, buildings, avatars, etc. So it's really a great match. But as you know, despite very rosy predictions, this year, 2023, a lot of headlines have talked about the death of the metaverse. So again, we may just be in that, that difficult time after everything was hyped up, that people realize, well, the numbers are not there yet. And so I think metaverse will come back, maybe with the Apple Vision Pro, maybe other solutions. We're going there. We don't know exactly when, of course, nobody knows, but we're going there, and most probably blockchain will be part of that, the new ecosystem and environment of the metaverse. Now, during the hype, many mainstream corporations joined the hype. Visa did a whole brochure about NFTs because they saw the potential there in terms of payments, even if it's crypto. Actually, on some of them, like Top Shot, most of the transactions done by credit cards. Porsche has an NFT collection. Many big brands have NFT collections. The Porsche one didn't start so well, but that has been a major. It's still going on. I mean, NFTs are still here. There's still activity, and there are still many companies issuing NFTs today. So that's a sector that is still very much alive. Not as hyped up as it was, but very much alive still. And this is a part of Web. We believe there is a lot of potential, and we actually focusing more on today. So, for example, so it's all about Web3 in the social space, social media, social network space. There is one important distinction between Facebook, Web2 social networks and Web3 social networks, is that in the Web3 space, you can have what we call decentralized social graph. The social graph, that basically the network, your network, or the network of interconnection between all the users of these social networks. If this one is actually decentralized, then it means anyone can build applications around it. Anyone can potentially monetize it through the right applications. There is one protocol called Lens Protocol, which is actually a spring of a very well-known DeFi platform called Aave. Aave means ghost in Finnish, and they did very well in the DeFi world, and now they have also created. They have a team working on that. They just raised some funding recently as well. But Lens has been around for a while, and they're trying to empower users and entrepreneurs to build on this on their protocol. And their protocol is basically a foundation for many other social networks, social media that can build on that. So as explained here, Lens envisions an internet where the data and social graphs are out in the open for anyone to build on top of. Of course, as opposed to the current Web2 social networks, where a lot of the power and the money comes from the data provided by users and their proprietary social graphs. So building in Web3, this is a very interesting article from last year in the Harvard Business Review. So it's all, again, around control of the data. Users can own the data, control it, they can port it, they can, it's interoperable, they can have their NFTs. Usually the data is in the form of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and they can move it around across different Web3 platforms. So this is actually very much in the spirit of the Web 3.0 that internet builders and internet entrepreneurs were looking at when they were talking about Web 3.0. And so it offers a very large range of opportunities to entrepreneurs and users, and we are kind of bullish about this, and we're backing this space these days. That's it. I don't know if there is a question format. You wants to know something more in particular. I've been quick because there's a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we get a kind of a 360 view possible on this sector.
Okay. No, I have a couple of questions I'm sure the audience will start asking also. If you could turn off the share screen, that would be great.
Yes.
So basically, Web 3.0, with all of these iterations, will disintermediate all of the intermediaries who are making lots of money.
Yes.
So they've tried to say it's stupid, it's bad, it's ridiculous, it's not a good idea, but it's mainly coming from people who make a lot of money being intermediaries. You could buy a house directly through each other with smart contracts. Don't you see that because there's so much money made in the intermediary space, whether it's a bank, transferring money and making money on the transfer, that there'll be continuous pushback from the financial sector from allowing a DeFi to really thrive?
Okay. So yes, what's happening now is quite interesting because the DeFi kind of very bullish years have kind of faded already a little bit. The liquidity is not as strong. The trading volume is lower. And yes, we have seen different types of kind of attacks, but it's very interesting because at the same time, so while, for example, the main banks that were providing liquidity to crypto trading are basically gone. I mean, 3 main banks have been shut down, and these 3 main banks were, Silvergate, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank were actually very, very important for the crypto, and they are gone, right? So we have that has happened. SEC has been fighting a lot of rockets to the space, throwing a lot of rockets to the space. But at the same time, these massive funds like Fidelity, BlackRock are bringing Ethereum and Bitcoin to their users through Bitcoin ETFs, through crypto accounts, and so forth. So we have and I think that's not the first time we see this. We have traditional players see an opportunity at the same time as they see the threat on their business model. And they can only act in 2 ways. They can either defend it, and we all know the example of the music industry, which didn't go well for them. They can defend it as long as they can, or they can adapt and they can change their model so that people have a chance to actually use it. Now, in the finance space, I'm not saying that BlackRock is going to have a DeFi platform. Obviously, I mean, an ETF still is a very traditional security in all senses of the word. But still, the fact that a big company like this brings a Bitcoin ETF or an Ethereum ETF and so forth is reassuring for the whole space. So the whole space will thrive on this type of news, and it has. I mean, Bitcoin price went up 10-15% on back of the news of BlackRock going for an ETF. So we have this kind of dual interactions, and this will go on for a while. Yes, this will go on for a while. DeFi could become regulated. This is one aspect of things. So DeFi platforms could do whitelisting, KYC, and so forth. All the tools are there. So there could be a big DeFi world where decentralized finance is actually under some form of regulation. And there could be very large organization, like if we look at Robinhood, or we look at neobanks like Revolut and so forth, they could go into that space because they are a bit more daring. They have less to lose, let's say, than JP Morgan. So we have many scenarios, and very hard to say who's going to win this game. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience. So Mark wanted to know, Mark Heidemann, can you elaborate on securities versus commodity issues the SEC is talking about? A, that's one question. B, IPv6 with blockchain opportunities as point-to-point secure transactions. I'm not sure what that means. C, please elaborate block size in relation to subsidy and transaction fees. I guess Mark is in the business.
Okay. Well, I'll probably ask you to repeat.
If you click on comments, you can see the questions there also.
Okay, great. Let me see then.
At the upper right or left corner, you'll see a tab saying comments.
Yes.
And
Great.
then you can see the questions.
Okay, so regarding securities versus commodities, this is mainly, I mean, the funny thing is that as early as 2013, 14, Bitcoin, because at the time there were not so many crypto, Bitcoin was seen differently by all the different agencies in the US. So for FinCEN, Bitcoin was money, very, very clearly. And that's why all the crypto exchanges were getting money transmitter licenses across the 50 states of the US. As you know, that's how it works there. IRS, usually money as well, depending on the day, but the flavor of the day was money because they wanted it to be taxable somehow. CFTC commodities, of course, because they wanted it to be under their own regulation, and SEC as a security. So it's basically, there's no definition. Basically, each agency decides at the time, and it's kind of a intra-agency, not fight, but like a little bit of a conflict where they all want to rule this crypto space, and basically, although some crypto people would prefer that certain crypto are considered commodities, because then it would be clearer in terms of regulations and capital gains tax and so forth, because there is always a taxation element to it as well. It's actually we are very much external observers here. There is nothing we can do, obviously. So we just let SEC, CFTC, and all those basically try to find their own solutions. Since 2013, we have been helping blockchain companies, and the regulatory uncertainty has been a major problem. I saw that Cameron Winklevoss said it again 2 days ago, that until the US fixes the regulatory uncertainty of crypto, the sector will be not as strong as it should, because entrepreneurs don't know what's going on. Coinbase has moved, not moved, but they're opening in the UK. I think they're opening in Bermuda. A lot of crypto exchanges in the US are looking outside of the US because of this problem. So there's that's all I can say. Basically, we could argue for a very long time whether crypto are securities or commodities, but at the end of the day, it has absolutely no influence on the decision makers. So it's kind of very much, unfortunately, a kind of useless debate.
And question B.
IPv6, yeah, I mean, yes, but this, okay, I mean, I'm not that familiar, but I've heard you're referring to really internet protocol type question here, because I agree that it's important, because obviously blockchain is using internet protocol, but can you use that to do what you're calling point-to-point secure transactions? To be very clear, I don't know, but we have invested in a solution which is try to do this. I'm not sure. They don't use IPv6. I don't think so. They use something closer to what we call Lightning Network in the Bitcoin space, which is similar in the case that it's kind of point-to-point secure transactions as well. And the company is called Yellow. If you want, you can have a look. Yellow.com, yellow.org. They have all the domains. It's a layer 3 protocol, and although layer 3, they're working on a Lightning Network, which means that it's very core point-to-point type transactions, secure transactions for trading. So have a look at this, but I'm sorry I cannot really elaborate much on IPv6.
And on block size.
Okay, well that's that's a long story in the crypto space. Block size, that was at the origin of a lot of controversies, because block size is limited in the Bitcoin network, and there has been big camps of crypto entrepreneurs or followers or let's say decision makers in their own communities some of them wanted a much larger block size, saying that it could prevent some congestions, it could make it quicker and so forth. Some other people were saying, no, it's not as secure, let's stick to the original Bitcoin. And that's why some other Bitcoins have been created, what we call Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Vision. So there are many Bitcoins out there. I usually don't talk about those too much, not to confuse people, because it's confusing enough as it is. But there are other Bitcoin, true art forks, and they have their own block sizes, they have their own choices. There is also Litecoin, which is also a kind of fork of Bitcoin. So, I mean, I don't think we can say too much here, because it would take a long time. But I think what is important is to realize that yes, there is friction because of congestion in the memory and in the network, and this has been the case, for example, for Ethereum during the very active moments of crypto in 2022, when Ethereum was high and people were trying to DeFi transactions very quick. Some transactions could cost $1,000. Okay, it sounds crazy, but some people were paying that because they could take the risk of losing more if they didn't have the transaction going. So there is definitely a problem there, and this is a lot of limitations of blockchain. Everybody's trying to fix that in a way or another. People create their own blockchain. People iterate from proof of work to proof of stake, as you may know, and the idea is actually to solve some of this congestion problem. So we'll see. There's still a long way to go if we want to stick to blockchains, because there are pseudo blockchain protocols out there that are actually not blockchains. They are in this space, and they have very similar to centralized databases running in the background, BPFT and so forth, or DAG, etc. And they claim to be blockchain. They're not blockchain. So it's not easy to solve, because if you want to stay true full to blockchain and solve this problem, it's very complicated.
Colin wants to know if private blockchains are not transparent and aren't verifiable, what are the benefits of a private blockchain over a normal database?
Question, and it's a question we ask ourselves, actually. Well, there are many reasons. So there are many reasons. At some point, one of the reasons was basically hype and marketing. Banks, companies want to say, we are doing blockchain. They're not really, but they do a private blockchain with IBM, Microsoft Azure, Hyperledger, and so forth. And then they say, okay, we're doing blockchain. As I was saying, private blockchains can have some of the features of a blockchain, but you're right. If you remove transparency, if you remove public verification and so forth, it's actually not that useful. You can basically use a normal database. But some companies have been doing this in the process of going transition to public blockchain. So in that case, it could make sense. Like, okay, let's see if our teams can work. Because as we know, like a bank, which is usually a sum of hundreds of different databases, some of them dating from 1975, they have a big problem in terms of making all this work together. And let's say they add a layer, which is a private blockchain. They cannot add a public blockchain to a bank. It's very difficult. But private blockchain, they're going to experiment there. And if that works, maybe they will do a small project on public blockchain. Now, for example, Société Générale, the French bank, they have put out they have active on MakerDAO, which is a DeFi platform for the stablecoin DAI on Ethereum, and they have made some proposals there. Some banks are playing that game of the decentralized game. Yeah.
Sam wanted to know. Hi, Eddy. Thanks for your outstanding presentation, which it is. It's like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. Question: a common criticism from mainstream circles of Bitcoin is the excessive energy usage it requires, and this is bad for the environment. At the same time, Bitcoin proponents claim that Bitcoin will boost adoption of clean energy and contribute to a greener future. What are your thoughts on this, and does the truth lie somewhere in the middle? Sorry, froze there. Hopefully it'll come back in a second. Oh, we lost him. All right, so hopefully he'll come back shortly as he logs in again. Actually, I was listening to a podcast related to this about fermentation meat, making meat at an industrial level, and the amount of energy there is. Oh, there. Okay, you're back.
Okay, sorry.
If you can address that question.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just see if my connection is good. It should be good. Yeah, so for example, when Elon Musk had accepted Bitcoin for Tesla, that's when the price really shot up. Like the all-time high of Bitcoin came. That was spring 2022. And then it went back down when Elon Musk said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, but Bitcoin is way too dirty and is using way too much fuel, whatever, dirty energy. So I'm not going to accept it anymore." That was that put that problem even more to the front lines at that time, under the spotlight. So yes, there is tremendous alternative energy being used for Bitcoin mining. There is a geothermal, there is hydro. There is flares from oil production in Texas and so forth. And it's very easy to understand. It's because people who mine Bitcoin, they have only a few fixed costs. And obviously one of these costs is energy, and is a crucial one. So they go for the cheapest they can find. And usually the cheapest is using surplus energy from hydro, from geothermal, from flares, from anything. So that's why there is a natural. I mean, it's not that they love the environment necessarily. They make more money of energy, right? So you have already. That's a great kind of motivation for everyone to go in that case green or sustainable, and it's. Actually, one of the first Bitcoin mining operations I knew of was in Iceland, because in Iceland, geothermal was quite a cheap source of energy, and because the servers didn't need that much cooling. But of course, there are servers that use fuel, or there are servers that use basic energy created from natural gas or whatever. So there is, I think, there is more now than 50% that use sustainable sources of energy or alternative source of energy. So are a bit in the middle, as Sam is saying. In terms of the usage of electricity, as I was saying, it's a huge consumption of this security. Now, the interesting question is, how much do we value that security? That security at the moment is securing a network that is worth today about $650 billion, which is not insignificant, but it's not as much as what the banks are kind of managing, trillions of dollars. But the banks are also using a lot of energy to do so, and the central banks and the government. So if you start comparing, you're quite close, and it's very possible that banks, I mean, there are studies on that, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact figures, but it's much possible that banks are actually using more. There is printing money, there is bank computer centers, there is physical mortar bank retails, etc. So actually, the important question is, if a lot of the world transactions go into Bitcoin, then it's worth that expenditure. But I'm totally in favor of of course, alternative energy, and hopefully that number goes to as close as possible to 100%.
We're coming to. I mean, we've gone over the hour. We said it would be only 60 minutes, but it was such a fascinating presentation. What the potential for DeFi and crypto is massive. That's quite clear. Are there things that you see on the horizon that no one is even contemplating for the use of Web 3.0, other than making money and making money on tokens, etc.?
I mean, as I was saying, we're looking at the social angle, which is not necessarily very much finance related. It's more like for everyday life and for the it with serious issues like privacy, for example, which is a big problem on Web2 platforms. Privacy of data, of course, less hacks and so forth. And of course, now there is this big elephant in the room, which is AI, right? So AI can become a good combined technology with blockchain. Interestingly, AI does need huge power and does need huge computational power. So it means that there could be a combination there as well on the very deep tech side of things. In terms of applications, definitely there can be AI applications in the world of Web3. So I think there's going to be an acceleration of projects. It's very difficult to predict because I would say no one in 2020 predicted the NFT, the craze about NFTs. I mean, an NFT surprised everyone because NFTs did something that crypto didn't do before, an emotional layer. Collectibles have an emotional link to people. I collect whatever, cars, sport cards, wine, etc. And people were attracted to NFTs because of that emotional link that didn't exist in crypto before. Crypto was always just about finance before. So that took everyone by surprise, when people were spending tons of money to buy an NFT from an artist or a football player. So that's why it's very interesting, this space. We don't know, and this came very quickly. NFTs were trading billions of dollars after a few months only. So maybe in a few months' time, there will be something like this, which I cannot predict. And that's the exciting part of this space.
One final question, Colin, regarding BlackRock. Is their entry into the space going to be a negative in the long term? Are they going to try to control it, hard fork it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Hard fork it, again, probably not. Well, we don't know. Of course, we don't know. I mean, today they could hire what we call blockchain experts, and if they wanted to, why not? They could try to hard fork and create and do their own Bitcoin. But it has been done before, so not sure if they will learn actually from their previous experiences or not. There are ways where it could be negative if they start having too much Bitcoin. Yes, definitely. I mean, if they start having too much Bitcoin, then they don't need to hard fork it because they will have potentially control, not over the price entirely, but a good influence on the price. And that could be a negative, definitely. Well, by any player, it doesn't have to be BlackRock, it could be anyone. If they have a certain influence on the price, then they front run everyone. I mean, we know the problems. So yeah, there is a potential negative to it. But as usual with this community, when these names come, everybody's happy because obviously it gives some credibility to the space, and we're happy to see former enemies become friends, because that's the case. BlackRock were like most banks were denigrating Bitcoin only a few years back. So it's quite good to see they change their mind on this.
Okay. And the final question, what can we do to help you? We will be sending out the replay of this. And if you want me to include anything about your organization, what can we do to help you? You've been very generous with your time and your knowledge.
Nothing comes to mind. I mean, if we can share this presentation, we'll be happy to. That's fine. I mean, I've been educating on blockchain now for a long time. I usually take any chance I can to do so. So no problem, as long as more people understand and learn about this. I'm very happy.
Okay. Well, I'd like to I want to thank you very, very much. I just want to take a group selfie and we'll send everybody a copy of this. So just wave to the camera. And thank you, Eddy. This has been really spectacular. I want to thank our entire production crew for making the webinar possible. Sam, our producer, crypto genius and ramen critic. Ricky, my absolute better half with no filter. Ji Ping, our head of transparency and integrity. Vladimir Putin, our head of conflict resolution, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nobel Prize winner for stupidity, Elon Musk, our humility coach, and Donald Trump, our lead fact checker. So thank you all very, very much. For those of you that would like to stick around, we're going to do a virtual mixer, so you'll be connected for 3 rounds with someone else for a 5-minute video chat. Eddie, if I know it's quite late there in Singapore, if you have to leave, fine. If you want to join us, just stay on the system, and the system will lead you into the virtual mirror. So
Okay.
all right, let's go that. Okay, 3 rounds. Okay, and this, and then let's go. All right. Thank you all very, very much. Sorry we got cut off, Colin, at the end. And next week we're doing a special masterclass on mental health, particularly for men, from two guys who were really, really successful in business and finance and just hit a wall and decided we need to do something to help others around mental health. So thank you all very much for coming, and the replay in a few hours. Stay well. Bye-bye.